Well, good morning from Lake Vesuvius in Wayne National Forest. Alana and I are going to get out and hike around the lake here this morning. Kind of a brisk morning, Ohio Springs. We've actually had a little bit of frost this week. Anyway, waffling a bit. This should be somewhere between an 8 and 10 mile, depending on where we did research. It showed different mileage, so I'm not sure exactly what we're in for, but so far a lovely little beginning on a boardwalk, and pretty much our whole hike is going to be around the perimeter. So I should be able to put the drone in the air and have some fun with some photos and other things, even though the recent rain has kind of made the water pretty brown and yucky. I might have to work on black and white or something like that. Interesting fact, this is Lake Vesuvius here, and it's somewhat fitting. We very recently learned that our Italy-ish, we were going to be in like 4 countries and like 7 cities, I'll air quote cities, but the areas around Italy and that area. Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii was one of the stops, and we had learned that that trip is canceled. So bummer. We're trying to regroup, and well, more on that regroup and what we might be doing instead later. But for now, we're gonna get moving and get some blood flowing and some heat going. So follow along. All right, well, I just stopped for my first composition here on this hike, and Alana's going to pan out to kind of what I see here. But there's a large rock just off the shore. It actually has a Canadian goose sitting up on top of it as well that's been very still. And then there's a little bit of a leading line that kind of comes up here in the front to my camera. Now, from my the only lens that I packed today was my 24 to 70, sort of a Swiss Army knife. If I need to go wider, I can do a panorama, and if I need to go longer, it's still a sharp enough lens that I can do some pretty significant cropping. This composition, what I'm shooting for here is, I already mentioned the water sort of brown and ugly today after the rain, so it's a perfect opportunity for black and white. And something that I love in black and white is we at least where I'm at in Ohio down south, we don't have a lot of shore options like up north along Lake Erie, and I love that smooth water coastline with something just off in the water where you can really get sharp, really sharp long exposure. So my composition here is actually 4 images, and that's because I kept my lens at f9 without an ND filter on. I took a picture of the rock, and then I'm going to focus stack there, mid-ground and foreground, to keep everything sharp. I did that without the ND filter so that I could keep a faster shutter speed because there is a little bit of a breeze, and I wanted to make sure I got that Canadian goose sharp and in the image. And then I took a 4th image that will really be for my water and most of the ground where I don't need that sharpness and where the wind wasn't impacting, with a 10-stop ND. I still don't have my shutter release. I didn't in my last video where I talked about ND filters, so I had to increase my ISO up to ISO 200 at f9 to get a decent exposure in 30 seconds here with it being overcast. But anyway, a lot of words. Here's that image now. Well, so something interesting just happened, and you may have, in fact, just seen the footage of it having happened. I knew down here in the hills and everything that my drone had some GPS warnings, but I've actually flown with those before. In fact, I found a lot of times when you get around a lot of these rocks and down in the valley that the DJI Mavic has some problems with GPS, and it just says fly with caution. And I did that. I went to take out over the water. I had an absolutely amazing takeoff and landing location, and then shortly after I started my recording, I was kind of heading down the waterway, and all of a sudden I heard the motors take off, and it was taking off. And an interesting thing is it was responding to my controls still, except for stopping. It was in full tilt go mode. So I did recover it completely damage free, and I got it from right here when it all happened. Because it was still listening to me at least some for left-right control, I brought it towards land. I was out over the water, and I was able to even mostly navigate right through all of that brush and bring it in. I've recovered it. So I don't know if I have the video or not. If I do, you have already seen it. And if I don't, that's why. So I'm not sure. I was excited about doing some drone footage here, but I'm not sure until I can confirm that is resolved that I will again. So yeah, there you go. Interesting share. And we're back at the hike now. All right, so I just stopped for a second image, actually a second and a third. We're about 3.3 miles in right now, and I really liked this little hollow or valley that's kind of running up through, and I put my polarizer on the lens, which really has warmed up some of the tones, knocked off the glare, and I think with just a touch of dodging and burning, this is going to look pretty nice, especially up where I took the first image, which was directly on the bridge. So 2 images up there, same exact composition, just a quick focus stack because of the distance, and I wanted a little more open aperture so it stays sharp. And then I just set myself up for a second here, and I'm thinking about a square crop where I sort of use these 2 trees to frame in a leading line of the trail back again at that little bridge. This one looks okay. I don't know that I'm as excited about it on the back of the camera as much as up there, but I will show you both of them right now. Whoop. Well, we are approaching, or we are very close to the halfway point, and at the top end of the lake, or at the shallow end, it's really cool. For quite some time now, you can kind of see all this grass and everything behind me, and the water has been snaking really just 8 to 10 feet across. You probably can't see from this camera, but the water up here is much more blue, and the sand barges are really cool. I would love to, I'm sinking a bit, I would love to walk out here and get my camera real low with the grasses, and especially take an image of this bank over here behind me with all of the logs kind of laying down diagonally. I really like that. Unfortunately, I have the wrong boots, and we're only halfway through this hike, so it's far too marshy in here for me to make that walk out there without getting my feet soaking wet. And with, 4 or 5 miles yet to go, I'm not willing to take that. All right, well, all of the images you just ended up seeing has you caught up. I actually haven't gone anywhere. On my way back out from that marshy area, I did try to get that little bend at 70 millimeters, and then there's a bunch of these beautiful little flowers, kind of bell-like. I'm not sure the exact name. I'll look it up and I'll put it. It's right here. Anyway, this is what I did to get some of these shots. So if I get down here to my camera, one of the cool things with the new tripod is Alana's legs. No, one of the cool things with the new tripod is that you can flip this center column, which I don't normally like, but it works great for this. You can flip the center column over, and if you're comfortable enough with your camera and can still work all the dials upside down, it actually made for a pretty decent setup for some of those photos or some of those little flowers. So hopefully you enjoyed. We are getting moving again. So well, so we got to the end of the trail, and it's not warm enough for this, but it's too deep for the boots that I got. So oh my goodness. You remember those Nestle commercials? This is brisk, baby. Woo! All right, well, we are across. Our feet are dried, and we are moving again. Alana makes fun of me a lot of times. I always like to have an extra pair of socks, and here they ended up being towels, and I kept my wools, and she ended up switching socks. So extra socks are a fantastic idea. In truth, I've probably carried them on 100 hikes and not used them, but this was the time. I'm thankful I had an extra pair of socks. And all right, we're back at it. All right, well, we have continued on. I apologize for the lack of B-roll in the last bit, but honestly, we got to conversating and having a good old time. This has been a very, very refreshing hike. It just has really helped to recharge the batteries. I would say if you can stay away from people, still try to get out there, because this was honestly very, very nice. Let me look for a good word there. I did take one more picture right here at the beach. It's going to be another composite, and the reason it is you can't see now, especially with the metering of this camera, but you can't see now out there, but every once in a while these trees are backlit, and they've got these little teeny tiny green leaves, and there's some flowering purples and whites and things like that, and I really liked that look down from the beach. I took that image with the polarizer on, and then I switched out and put my 10-stop filter back on again so I could kind of smooth out that water, because I still don't like it being all brown and yucky. So I'm hoping that reflection will just kind of make it neat. I don't know. Here comes that image and any other images that I end up taking on the rest of the way out of this. I'm going to wrap this baby up and just have fun as we finish up the last 2 miles. Thanks for following along, and I'll see you next week. Oh, bye-bye.